In this video, we're going to continue with the creation of a basic Laravel content management system. In the previous couple videos, we installed Laravel, we got our database ready, we tried some seeding, and we created a dashboard. Now, right now, one problem with our dashboard is that it's not secure. You can view this dashboard without logging in. So the first thing we need to do is create a login process. So you are required to log in before you view the dashboard. So our login process is going to require 3 new routes. So first we need a login route. So this is just going to be console/login. And this is the page that you will view to fill in your email and password. So this one is going to use our console controller, and it's going to use our login form. Okay, next we're going to create a second route for our login process, except this one is post. So when you're creating routes, you need to specify which method is triggering this route. So web pages, when viewing pages, there's 4 primary methods. The main 2 are get and post. So get is when you view an actual page, it's actually using a get method to view that data, to view that page. When you submit a form, typically it's using post. So what we can do here is we can create the same route except the first one is when the page first loads. When the form is submitted, it's going to post, and then we can react differently. So in the first one, we're just going to display our form. In the second one, we are going to process that form. And then finally, we need one to log out. So if someone clicks on the logout button, this will be get. Then we will redirect them to console/logout. And this URL will work with our console controller. And we'll create a method in there called logout. Okay, so just to recap, when a GET request comes in for our dashboard URL, we simply return and display our dashboard. When a GET request comes in for console/login, we display a login form. When that form is submitted, that will translate to a POST request for our console/login. At that point, we will process the login, check the email, check the password, see if that account is valid. And then if a GET request comes in for console/logout, we will run a logout process. All right, so we can save that file. Then head over to our console controller. And now we need to make 3 methods matching our routes. All right, so first, we need a login form. Now the login form again does not interact with our database. All this does is display the login form. So all we need to do here is just like our dashboard is return the view, and we're going to call this view console.login, and we'll make that file in a sec. Okay, next we need a function that actually processes the login. So this is when the form is submitted. So in here, we're going to have a bunch of new code. When we are processing a form, we create a variable, typically called attributes. We take the request. So the request is a global object in Laravel that contains all the information about this page request. And some of that information, for example, in this case, will be a whole bunch of form data. So we can take that request and validate that form data. And we simply provide our validation rules. And Laravel has a lot of validation rules all built in. So for example, this one is required, and this one must be an email address. Password is just required. All right, next we're going to run an if statement, and Laravel has an auth function we can use. So if auth, and we're going to run an attempt to log in using the information from that attributes variable. And if the login is successful, we are going to redirect back to our dashboard because now our visitor is logged in. If the login attempt is unsuccessful, we want to return back. So this is going to send us back to the page we came from, and we're going to include the form data. Okay, so this allows us, not crucial in this concept in our login process, but when you redirect someone back, you want to include any form content so that we can pre-populate the form with the previously contributed content if needed. In a login process, not too crucial, but if we were editing a project, for example, that would be important. And then we can include some errors. So I'm just going to include one error for email that says invalid email / password combination. And I've got an error there. Oh, just missing some brackets in my array here. Okay, and finally our logout. So the logout page, when you click logout, you're not actually going to see anything. It's going to call the logout method here. And all we need to do is actually log them out. And we can use that auth function to do that. So it's auth logout. And then we can redirect them. To the home page. All right, so let's give this a try. If I go to my web page and change this to login. All right, so this is progress. The login route is being initiated, and it is calling our console controller login method, specifically the login form method. Login form is looking for that console.login view, and that view is not found. So we need to make that. So I'm going to go to our console folder, and I'm just going to copy most of this. So I'll copy this. It's going to be quite similar. Create a new file in our console folder here called login.blade.php. You can actually just name those .php. If you include the word blade, Laravel will look for any blade templating code, but if it's just .php, that will work fine too. Now, our templates here do have quite a bit of redundant HTML. We'll fix that later on, but for now, that's okay. All right, so in our login template, we just need a basic form. So I'm going to create a form. Method is going to be post. And the action is going to be, remember from our routes, console/login. Now, this is going to use the post method, so it will initiate our login method as opposed to our login form method. And I'm going to put no validation in here. The browsers by default will provide some validation. However, you have very little control over how that validation looks. So I want to use my own validation here. Now, to prevent cross-site scripting is an approach used to hack a website. And to prevent that, we want to make sure that when this form is submitted, the submitted data is coming from this website, not from an external source somewhere. So there's a quick little tool here called CSRF field, and we're going to put this in all our forms. This will just make sure that when this form processes the submission itself came from this website, not from an external source. Okay, then we'll just throw in a form here, and I'm going to use some basic w3.css classes to spread it out. Okay, and then this is our email, so we'll just create a label. And our input. And remember our form, when someone fills out this form and it's an incorrect email and password, we provided the inputs when redirecting the visitor back to our form. So if we want in our value, we can provide, and there's a function to do this, the old email, the email from the form submission, so they don't have to retype their email. Now the nice thing about old is and I just spelled email wrong there. Okay, next we need our password text box. So along the same lines here, now the password we do not want to pre-populate with the old data, so we can leave out the value. And finally, a submit button. Now if we save this and refresh our page here and click submit, nothing happens. So we need to get an email address and a password from our database. So if I go back to our database, now notice our database has a users table. If we browse the user table, we have no data. So when we were last working on this, we did not put any data in. So I'm going to quickly just jump over to our terminal and run our PHP artisan migrate, refresh, and I'm going to seed our data. Okay, and no errors. So if I go back to my database and browse my user table, I now have some users. I'm going to copy that, and I believe that password is just password. So let's give this a try and click login. And it worked. It redirected me back to my dashboard. So I submitted my form with a working email and password. It checked, it logged me in, and redirected me back to my dashboard. Now looking at this, I'm not totally sure if that worked. I'm on my dashboard, but how do I know that it actually logged me in? So let's go back to our dashboard. And in our head section, let's add some information about who is logged in. So that auth function can be used inside our templates and can be used to display, for example, who is currently logged in. So under our heading here, I'm going to write an if statement, and we're going to say if auth check. And this is a tool just to check to see if someone is logged in. And close my if statement, and I'm going to have an else here and an end if. So if someone is logged in, we're going to say you are logged in as, and then we can use that auth to get our user last name and first name. So you are logged in as first space last. Oh, and I forgot that should be a equal sign. And if someone's logged in, let's then give them some options to log out. So we'll create a link to log out. So this will link to console/logout. And let's give them an option to go back to the dashboard. And we'll throw in a link. Let's say we want to go back to the actual website. So this would just be / the home page. And we'll say website homepage. If they are not logged in, now here actually they won't even see this, it's just going to kick them out. But if this header, because we're going to use this header in lots of different spaces, if they're on the login page, for example, let's display a return to my homepage link. I guess in this case we're using this to build a projects admin, so this could be your portfolio. Return to my portfolio. So if I refresh that, save and refresh my dashboard, all right, we've got an error here. Okay, and my error is, just forgot some brackets here, the user, there is a method, so just fix that. And there we go. So I'm logged in as Tanner. If I go back to my database, I did in fact log in as Tanner. So that confirms that this is working. And if I click log out, I am back to my home page. And now if I go back to my dashboard, that should be console/dashboard. Notice I'm here, but I'm actually not logged in. I'm getting a return to my portfolio link. So that header is working fine. Let's just copy that header into my login page. So I'll put that also in my login header. Now, one problem is I am currently not logged in, but I'm still accessing the dashboard. So how do I prevent that? And the way to do that is I go into my routes, and inside my routes, on each route, I can add what's called middleware. So this one and this one require that you are logged in before you can view the dashboard or before you can log out. So at the end of my routes, I add some middleware. This is code that kind of runs in between the request and processing the request. So for example, I want to make sure that this person is authorized before they can view this page. So there is a middleware, and if you want to take a look at that file, if we go up here to middleware, there is a handful of provided middlewares. So we're using the auth middleware. and I can copy that over to my logout page. Now I could actually also here say, if I want to view the login page, I cannot be logged in. And to switch that, I switch this to guest. And what that will do is, if I'm already logged in, it will redirect me back to the dashboard. Now, if we look at our Authenticate middleware, you can see if you're not logged in, it's going to redirect to the login page. And actually where I want to redirect to is console/login. Okay, so I'll save this. And now I'm currently not logged in. So let's refresh this page and notice I did get kicked out, but it's saying my console/login is not defined. And the reason for that is here it's actually expecting a route name. Even though this kind of looks like a route URL, this is actually a route name. So in my routes, I just need to provide that login route with a name. So I just want to jump back to my routes. Find my login route. This is the one I want to redirect them back to, and give this one a name. Oh, got a couple extra semicolons there. So I'm going to give this login one a name. Now I can just give it a simple name instead of the full URL. We'll just call this login. And then in my Authenticate middleware, I'm just going to switch this to use the login route. So I'll save that. Let's refresh. And there we go. It kicked me out and sent me back to the login page. Okay, and let's log in one last time. So I'll copy Tanner's email and log in. One thing to note, if you do rerun your migration, which will reseed your database, your emails and users will change. So you'll have to go and get a new email address from your database. However, the password is always password. And the last thing we can add to our login process is validation. Now, the form itself actually is validating at this point. However, it's not displaying those error messages. So just jump over to our login template, and underneath our two text boxes, we're going to add some validation. So that attributes variable in our controller, if we just take a jump over to our controller, this process here will validate and place the errors inside an errors object that we can use in our templates. So jump over to our template, and in here I'm just going to run a quick if statement. So if in our errors variable, so inside errors is a whole bunch of information about the errors that this form process ran into. So for example, using the ID or the name of our text box, errors related to errors related to email, and we want the first error. So it is possible that our validation found more than one error. So we just want to say if it found at least one, then display that error message. And to display it, we'll just go down a line from our form element, so our error shows up below, and then using again some basic W3 styles, display our first error message. So output from our errors, first error related to email, and then close our span. And then I can just copy this whole if statement and copy that and place that under our password text box as well, and just fix the tabbing there. And save that. And now if I go back to my form or my dashboard and log out, go back to my console and submit, we now get errors. And there is ways to customize the wording of those errors, but for now the default is fine. So our dashboard is now working. We can log in, log out, And now we need to work on our 3 add, edit, deletes there: projects, types, and users.